Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to Into the Glow. This is a really fun Zentangle class that I'm going to be teaching for the San Rafael Public Library, but I thought I would share it with you too here on our YouTube page. So let's get started and talk about the things that we're going to need for class. I'm going to be working with an Identi pen. This is a nice thick nib pen that is going to help us when we have to fill in the areas of the cat. I'm also going to be working with a Micron PN pen, but you can also see I have my Pigma pen here. They're the same pen, it's just made in a little bit of a different way. I also have a white gel pen in my hand. You can use the Sakura white jelly roll. I have a 10 that I will be using for class, or you could also use the Mizu Love, which is the one that I have in my hand. I'm going to be working with a graphite pencil and a blending stump. If you don't have a blending stump, remember you can always use a Q-tip in the bathroom to help you do your blending. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one. And if you don't have the Prismacolor pencils, don't worry about it. Grab whatever color pencils you have and play along. You know me, I also love to work with the Genesis tile over at the Tangled Yogi shop. This tile is 4.5 by 4.5 inches, super smooth and great for color pencil work. If you don't have the Genesis tile, just go ahead and grab your favorite sketchbook and make a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 and play along with us. And then later on down the line, as you do more tangling, you may decide that you want to get yourself some really nice tiles. And you can always stop at the Tangled Yogi shop for that. So with that said, let's get started with Into the Glow. So many of you know that I like to do a little grounding exercise before we start creating here. So let's take a comfortable seated position. Allow your spine to grow comfortably tall, letting your shoulders melt away from your ears here. And if you're comfortable, you can let your hands rest in your lap and allow your eyes to close for a moment and just landing in your space. And let's take 3 nice deep breaths right here together. Inhaling through your nose and slowly exhaling through your mouth. Inhaling and exhaling. And one more time, inhaling and exhaling. And as we breathe here for the next few moments, I'm going to read a quote, and this one's from Albert Einstein, and he says, "The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art." And just letting that resonate with you for a moment. Taking in another deep breath right here. And letting it go with a sigh. And in your own timing, wiggling in your fingertips and wiggling in your toes. Adding vision to your practice by blinking the eyes open. And let's have some fun with this mysterious little cat. Hey everyone, if you need to print out the cat because you're feeling a little intimidated to draw it, I've linked this template to the class description below. You can print it out and do the class that way, okay? Have fun with this. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start by building a string, and your string is the way that you divide your space in the Zentangle world. And so you can see I've got a graphite pencil in my hand here. I'm going to come out from the top here, out about 1 inch and make a dot. And over here I'm going to do the same thing and make a little dot. I'm going to start to build these 2 columns that are going to go down the piece here. And you can see that I'm freehanding this. Now, if you feel like you need to use a ruler, you can. I like things that are handmade, so I'm just going to freehand it. So I've got this one on this side as well. and bringing that down. So you can see that I've got these two lines on my page here. Now I'm going to come up about an inch from the bottom and make a little dot, and then I'll turn my piece on its side here, and I'm going to make a column that's going to go across like so, and this is going to be the areas in which we are going to tangle. So you can see that I've got this side right over here and this side over here. I've got this nice little area to tangle in and this big area in here to tangle in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by picking up my Identi pen, and I'm going to make some pretty bold lines for our string here. So I'm just going to start by taking this Identi pen. Now, if you don't have an Identi pen, a Sharpie will work in a pinch. It's just a thick nibbed black pen. And even if you don't have a Sharpie, like you have a Micron 05, that would work. A Micron 10 would work. Anything that's going to give you a nice thick line. Now you can see that I turned over my tile. I'm left-handed, so I'm just making it easy for my hand to go across the page. If you're right-handed, you'll probably do this the opposite of me, and that's just fine too. So you can see here, there is my string for this piece. It almost looks like the letter H at the bottom here. It kind of has a little bit lower of a bar line there. So you go ahead and create yours. I'm going to create mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to tangle. So I've got this really nice string here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to divide my columns in order to bring in our first tangle. I'm going to come down from the top 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to divide the space. Now for those of you who don't know how large the tile is that I'm using, my tile is 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches. So if that helps you to create your piece, that's fine. I'm doing the same thing right in here where I've come up about 1.5 inches, and I've got these 3 blocks now in which I can work in. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So all I'm going to do is come down about 1.5 inches and make a line, and then the same thing over here, come down and make a line, and that's going to help me to divide the space here. Now you'll notice that I'm not going to make big thick lines to divide these spaces because it's actually going to be part of our tangle itself. So just go ahead and get those blocks. Really it's just 3 blocks on each side, just like so, divided evenly. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to take this off to the side for a second and talk about our first tangle of the day. And I'm believing that this is pronounced Tuu, and this is such a fun tangle, and we're going to be using it in our border here. And so the way that this is done is you're going to start with your box that you have, and inside of your box you're going to make a nice circle. It's not a big one, just a little one. And then I want you to think of a question mark. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by doing a nice curved question mark, and it's going to land on the left-hand side of my circle. I'm going to turn my tile upside down here, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to do a nice question mark, and it's going to land on the left-hand side of my circle. Now, once we've got those 2 little loops done here, I'm going to make a dot at the midpoint of each side of the box here. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that so that you can really see it. I'm going to start by coming into where the curvature is of that question mark, and I'm going to make a nice diagonal line, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing and let it join down there. I'm going to come over here to where that curve is, let it drop down to the midpoint, and then I'm going to let it come back in and touch the curvature of that one down there. Once I've got that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to do an aura line on the inside. So it's going to go a little something like this. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Easy peasy, right? It's such a beautiful tangle, and I really think that you're going to enjoy it. So let's go ahead and start to bring this into our piece. Let's go ahead and pick up our Micron PN pens here. I'm going to start by coming into each block that I have here. You can see that I've got those lines dividing, and I'm going to come right into the center, and I'm going to start by bringing 3 circles into each side here. Now the reason why I'm starting with the circles is just because your mind or your brain has a way of creating a felt memory, and I want these circles to be about the same size, so I'm starting with those first. So once I've got them, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start in with those really fun question marks. So you're going to see me come in right here, and I'm going to start just by creating a loop, get nice and close to the edge, and then I'm going to drop down and land on the left-hand side of my circle there. I'm going to go ahead and do it again, same thing. Landing on the left-hand side. And one more time here, landing on the left-hand side. Same thing on the other side, so we're just jumping over, land on the left, one more time, land on the left, and last one right here, land on the left, just like so. I'm going to turn the tile over, and I'm going to do the same thing all over again. So all I'm doing is just creating this really nice looped question mark, coming into the next one, and one more time coming into the next one. I'll go to the other side. One more over here. And I'm really kind of focusing on getting those nice and close to each other. You can see the proximity is pretty darn close there. And then I'm going to do one last one right here. So we've built the foundation for this really lovely tangle that we have here. And I'll just go over and flip it back around so that we're back into our original position here. And remember how I made those really nice dots at the midpoint on either side of the boxes? You're going to see me line it up. I'm going to come down here and do the same thing. I really like a good place to pick up and land. That is something that I've learned from Zentangle, and I really enjoy it. It gives me a lot of confidence when I'm doing my pen work. And so it's going to look a little something like that. So here we go. I'm going to start right at the top of this little question mark, and I'm going to go ahead and make a nice diagonal line and let it connect. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let it come down and touch right at this curvature here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to let it line up, coming over, and then once again I'm going to let it land right opposite of the first one. Let's do it again. Coming in, find the curvature, let it land, and then let it land nice right on the curvature there. Coming in and then dropping down. One more time, coming in and then dropping down. Such a fun tangle. Once you get the knack of it, it's really fun. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing. All I'm doing is just connecting to the curvature. Super, super fun. It's got a really nice rhythm to it. Coming in down here. That one's a little wonky, but I'm okay with that. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to come in and we're going to start to create that aura that's inside. So you're going to see me come in and very gently creating the aura. And dropping down. Coming in over here and dropping down. Same thing over here. Make that little curve go up a little bit. I'm going to come over to the other side. Nice aura right here. Take your time with your auras. Your auras have a tendency to give you away if you're rushing. Same thing in here. Just moving the tile to make it work for your hands. And you can always make that curve a little stronger if you need it to be. Just like so. So that when I zoom out, look at how beautiful that is. Doesn't that just have such a nice rhythm to it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build another aura into the piece here. You can see that we almost have these triangular shapes that are lining up on the outside here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm going to find the midpoint right about here, and I'm going to create this really nice aura in between. And I'll do it over here as well. So it almost looks as if that tangle is continuing right next to it. Just like so. Let this one come down. And I'll let that one come down. I'll go above too and just do a half a triangle here and a half a triangle there. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. So all I'm doing is just coming in, creating a point, and creating a triangle that is auraing what is right next to it. And what that does is it just brings a really nice cohesiveness to this tangle, which I love. Just like so. And so there you have our really, really fun Tangle Tuu, which I think is so beautiful. So go ahead, take a moment, finish this up, and when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of line work, and then we're going to move on to our next tangle. So I'm going to be doing some vertical lines right next to these really angulated lines, and it's going to help to fortify the tangle. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the outside edge of my tile as my guide, and I'm going to just go ahead and start to bring some vertical lines into these triangles. And you can see that I'm starting from the outside and working my way in. And for me, I like to use these guides of horizontal lines to really build up the string. So you can see in here, I'm just going to start to build it right off of the side and let it fly right down. Same thing over here. And you can see that that really fortifies that tangle and gives it a really nice contrast. And this is great to do in lieu of inking in your sides. There's going to be so much black in this piece that it's not really necessary for us to ink in the sides. So I'm going to come over to this side and do the same. Coming in over here. And for me, whenever I'm doing line work like this, I really want to take my time. Remember how I was talking about how your lines can give you away? If you're rushing on these, it'll definitely give you away. So really just enjoy the zen of the repetition and get into the groove. I'm going to come in over here. And one more time, just using that outside edge to fortify the tangle. Super fun. You go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to start to build our next tangle. All right, so we are going to start to bring in our next tangle, and it's going to come down into this space right here, and it's going to be the wall in which our guest of honor is going to sit on. So we're going to be working with the tangle called Boulder Builder, and this is by Bunny Wright, and I love this tangle. I found out about it a few years ago, and I try to use this tangle as much as I can because it brings beautiful texture into a piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by taking my little square that I have here, and I'm just going to divide it in half like so. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just come down to this little area right here, and I'm going to break it in half. Once I've got that, I'm going to break this little square into a half as well. Now, just to have a little bit of fun with this, we're going to start to break this little square in half as well. Now, what's really fun about Boulder Builder is that it's all about rounding your corners. So you can see that I've got all these little corners in here, and all I'm going to do is come in and round it off, just like so. I'll go over here and do the same. Same thing over here. Just getting into it. Super fun, super easy, right? I'm going to come in and get these little rounded edges. And then just to make things a little bit more interesting, I think I'm going to break this one in half right over here and round off those corners. Now I want you to think about beautiful rock walls that you have seen on the countryside, or if you've ever seen them in the landscapes that people do. They're really beautiful, and that's what Boulder Builder is meant to mimic. I'm going to come up here and create a nice large boulder in here and move over to this side. And so it looks like a large brick over the top of some smaller bricks or a boulder. And then you can see that I kind of created these little cracks in my my rocks here, and all I'm doing is just making kind of a craggly line and then letting another craggly line come off of it, and it makes it look as though it's kind of old and rustic. I always think that that's kind of interesting to create these little hairline fractures inside of your wall. And because it's, kind of Halloween time, it's nice to have that rustic feel. So let's go ahead and bring Boulder Builder into our composition today. So let's go ahead and bring this in here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to divide the space into a half here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start to divide this space into a half as well. And I'm just going to try to keep this as simple as I can for today. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this in half as well. Now once I've got that, I can start rounding off my corners, but I also think I want to give this a little bit of texture too, so I'm going to go ahead and create 2 columns right in here. So I'm going to start to bring that rounding into my corners. coming over and bringing that in here as well. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that so you can really see what I'm up to. Getting in here, over here. This one up here. Over in here. And it really gives it a nice feel, getting those really nice and clean. So we've got our boulders in there. Now let's go ahead and bring in some hairline fractures. I'm going to go super duper light with my pen and just kind of give it this kind of craggly feel. Might come up to this one right over here and just give it like this kind of broken line kind of feel. And maybe another hairline fracture over here. And so there you've got Boulder Builder, and I have to say, this one is one of my favorite tangles to shade. So when we get into our shading, I just can't wait to share it with you. It's one of my favorites to shade. All right, so when we come back, we're going to start to bring in our guest of honor. Okay, so as I'm recording this video for you, we are trying to develop a little template of the cat. So for those of you who aren't interested in drawing the cat will already be there for your template. However, for those of you who aren't able to print out a template and all of that jazz, I wanted to give you an opportunity to build your own cat. So here we go. Ready, spaghetti? Let's do this thing. So you can see that I still have the string from my original tangle that we did out here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a dot that lines up with that little string that we had before. And you can see that I'm working with a graphite pencil here. And that's just so that if you want to make any changes to your cat, you can. So you can see that I'm about 1.5 inches away from the top here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a circle that goes around that dot. And I would say my circle is about the size of a dime. And for those of you who don't have any dimes in your neck of the world, it's probably about 1 inch across. Let's take a look and see. Let's find out. Is it? Maybe it's a little shy of that, maybe 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to come into the corner here. I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can really see what I'm up to. Now, for those of you who have been with me before, you know that I love the Tangle Flux. I use it a lot. It's one of those tangles that is very, very useful, and all it is a teardrop shape. Okay? In this particular situation, it's going to be the body of our cat. So I'm going to start from this corner here, and I'm going to come up and over, let it touch that first circle, and you can see this is a pretty robust flux shape. So you've got this circle resting right here, and then you've got the flux shape right here. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right where this curvature is starting to decline, and all I'm going to do is let it drop down with a little bit of a curve. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a little bit of a printemps or a spiral, and I'm going to let it drop down. Once I've got the tail in there, I'm going to start to put a little triangle on the back side of this circle, and you can see that it's got a little bit of a curvature to it. I'm going to start to make a little bit of a squaring off of that circle, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. I'm going to take this line and I'm just going to bring it across right here. I'm going to bring a little bit of a diagonal line down, flatten that face a little bit, and then I'm going to do another diagonal line that goes in just like so. On the back side of this little ear here, we're going to come in and we're just going to do a little soft line that's going to connect to the back side of the cat here. So when we come in with our pens here, it's going to look a little something like this. We're only tracing the outside edge. And really, you won't make any mistakes here because even if you get to the inside of it, it's no big whoop because you're gonna be tangling inside of the cat anyway. So you can see that all I've done is trace the outside edge, and it looks like a really nice silhouette of a cat. Now play with yours, give yourself some space, and don't be hard on yourself. Remember, we're here to play. So if you're getting really super judgy about your cat, see if you can back off of that judgment and just play a little bit. It takes a minute. It's not easy, but it is really fun. So go ahead, do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to put a tangle inside of the cat, and then we're going to ink the cat in. So I'm going to take my little gummy eraser that I have here, and I'm going to erase part of my string that I have in here. So we're just taking out anything that's in the central part of the cat here. And the reason for that is because we're going to be tangling inside of the cat. Now I'm going to show you the tangle, and then we're going to do it inside of the cat. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to talk about this next tangle called Ukulele, which is a really, really fun tangle. And all it is, you're going to see a theme here. You know how we started with a question mark? Well, we're going right back to it here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating this really nice question mark. And then I'm going to go ahead and do an aura of the question mark, just like so. Now once I have that, the way that she does it is she comes in, and for those of you who have seen me do henna drum, she does a very similar version of it with that kind of henna drum pedal, which is really fun. So you can see that I'm going in and creating that really kind of soft petal-like shape that goes all the way around the piece here. And then she comes into the center and creates a little bit of interest by adding a line and a dot into the piece. Now for this one, I wanted it to be a little bit more pointed, so I used the poke leaf shape that we usually do. So for those of you who are not familiar with poke leaf, it's just two lines, a frowny face, and then the leaf-like shape, and it's called poke leaf. So we're going to use that shape of poke leaf and throw it around ukulele. So let's go ahead and bring this into our piece here. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and take our pens, and we're going to work with the inside of our cat here. I'm going to start by creating that really fun question mark. So I'm going to give this a nice curvature and let it just kind of mimic the sway of our cat. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that internal aura. And you can see that I'm really taking my time to get a nice aura here. And then we'll start to build the really pretty part of the petals here. So all I'm going to do is just start to create those petal-like shapes and just keep them within the inside of my cat. I'm just turning the tile Making it work for my hand here. And you know, every time I do this, it's always a little bit different. So if you want to make yours smaller, you can make yours smaller. This time mine happens to be a little bit bigger. And I think that's as far as I'm going to let it go on the piece here. I'm going to start to come in and create that interest by creating a line and a dot. So there we have the Tangle Ukulele inside of our black cat. Once you have your ukulele inside of the cat here, I'm going to pick back up my Identi pen. Now remember, if you have a thick nib pen that you like to work with, you can grab that. So I'm working with the Identi pen and I have that really nice thick nib ready to go. And this is where things are going to start to kind of come together. So you're going to see me start to ink in my cat here. And you really want to take your time whenever you're pooling ink inside of this shape or the silhouette that we have here. And the reason for that is that you don't want to have any background coming through. You can see that my pen is actually working in a circular-like motion, and that really helps me to get a really nice, even distribution of color. You're going to see me start to work around that Zentangle here, and you can see that I'm just going to lightly move around ukulele here. Turning the tile to make it work for your hands here. You can see that I'm just moving it back and forth to really give it some interest. Turning the tile. Still working with that circular motion to try to get a really nice, even distribution of that ink. And so you get the idea of where I'm going with this. So I'm going to continue to work by filling this in, and I'm hoping that you will fill yours in too. I'm going to start to work on the inside as well. And all the while you are doing your inking in, making sure that your breath is nice and full and easy. We do have a tendency to hold our breath when we're doing a little bit more technical work. Soften your shoulders, maybe relax your jaw. See if you can let a little smile come across your face. That helps your body to relax. You can see that this has already changed quite a bit just by bringing in that interesting feeling to the piece. It gets so moody with that black cat, doesn't it? I just love that. So there you have our guest of honor. So go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to be working with one of my favorite tangles. And you know, this tangle I actually did very, very early on in my teaching career, and I knew it as part of an Ani flower, but it has a different name now, and so we're going to learn it as this new tangle. Okay? Okay, so let's have fun with this tangle that we're going to be working with called ICO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come in and create a nice light circle as a string. So remember, we're just playing here. We're just having fun. Now this one can be a little bit of a brain bender, but if you concentrate, I know you'll get it. Okay? So I'm using that pencil line as my string here, and you can see that I've switched over to my pen. I find that this is very helpful. I want you to think of a clock when you're doing this. So I'm going to be using a seed-like shape, and I'm going to start it at 12 o'clock. I'm going to go down to 6 o'clock and do another seed-like shape. And you can see that these seed-like shapes are sitting inside of where those lines are. I'm going to go out to the 9 o'clock slot, the 3 o'clock slot, and then I'll go into the spaces in between and do another set of these seed-like shapes. So we're going to end up with 8 of them. Okay? Now, once I have these little seed-like shapes, I want you to focus on the points of the shapes here. We're going to be working on the outside first, and then we'll come into the inside. So I'm going to zoom in on this here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one first. You can see here's the point, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a line that's going to aura the seed shape in front of it, and right before I get to the front of it, I'm going to stop. Okay? I'm going to turn my tile clockwise here. I'm going to come to the next point right here. I'm going to bring this up and over, bringing a nice aura to that seed shape, and I'm going to stop. Turning my tile, here's the next seed shape, coming up and over, auraing the seed that's in front of it, so you can see that it's creating an aura. Turning the tile, we're going to go to the next one right here, going right up and over the top. You'll notice I'm not connecting. I'm just letting it go. Seed-like shape right here, coming in and over, just like so. Here's the next one, up and over, turning, coming to the next one right here, up and over, and last time right here, here's my last seed. So we've gone the whole way around now. And you can already see that it's starting to develop its shape, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to create the internal shape. And what this is going to look like is I'm going to start right over here like I did the first time. Here's the other point. All I'm going to do is come out, and I'm going to pause right before I get past this point right here. You can see there's the point. I'm going to go ahead and start at that point right here, and I'm going to come out, and I'm going to pause right before I get right here. Can everybody see that? Turning the tile, I'm going to come out, create that aura right over the top, pause before you get to the point. Turning, pause before you get to the point. Here's the next one right here. Turn the tile, coming out, pause before you get to the point, coming to the next one, pause before you get to the point, next one right here, pause, and this one is going to connect. So you can see that it's created this almost star-like shape that's on the inside. Now remember those pieces that were on the outside? We're going to go ahead and connect them, but the way that you connect it is you're looking at this piece right here, and you want this to drop down into it. So it's going to go like this. See how it almost looks like a continuous line? Same thing here. Dropping it down and letting it connect. Same thing here. See where the line is right there? We're going to drop it down and make it look like it's weaving in and out of the whole piece. Turning your tile. Make it work for your hands here. Turning, turning, turning. And look at what a beautiful shape that makes. Isn't that so cool? And even if it's slightly wonky, it's really, really cool. So let's go ahead and bring this into our composition. All right, so here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my pencil here, and I'm going to build a nice circle around the top of our cat here. And this is just a string. Remember, it's just a string. We're not committing to having it be perfect. So there you can see I've got this halo around the top of my cat here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to show you this in pencil and then let you start to develop yours here. So remember how we did the clock? I'm going to come in. I'm going to put my first seed-like shape at 12 o'clock. Now my 6 o'clock is impeded by the cat, so I just want you to think about that. We're going to go over here to 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And then we're going to start to work in those spaces in between. Try to make your seeds about the same shape or the same size. Just like so. Okay? Now once I've got those, I'm going to start to ink them in. So you're going to see me just bring these in to fruition here. Take your time with these. There's no rush. Okay, so if you need to pause me here, this is a great place to do it. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my first point right here. You can see that I'm on the right hand side of the seed here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and over and just pause. Once I have that, I'm going to start to turn my tile. Come to the right hand side of that seed, let it go up and over, and pause. Turning the tile, coming up and over, and pause. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it look like it's coming out from behind the cat here. Let it come up and over, and pause. Same thing over here, just turning my tile, letting it go up and over, let it connect, coming over here, up and over, and pause. Last one right here, pause when you get to it, and last one right here. Super fun and super cool. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction here. I'm going to start right up in this corner, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, go over, and pause right at that point. You can see that I'm pausing there. I'm going to come up and out and pause, and then I'm going to let this one come up and over and out. Okay? I'm going to go back in the opposite direction here, so I'm just going to continue out here, turning my tile, coming in right over here, coming up and over, and pause. One more right here, up and over, pause. Right over here, up and over, pause. This one's coming out, up and over, and it will connect. So now if you have any lines on the inside that need to be connected, you can connect them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to connect the outside pieces. Remember how we were talking about how you want your lines to connect? See how I've got that line right there? I'm going to let it connect. I'm going to let this one connect so it looks like it's connecting in with this other line. Same thing over here. Going to let this one come up and over. This one's going to come up and over and connect. I'm going to let this come out the other side and weave, connect, and connect. So you can see that we've got this beautiful shape that's on the inside. You can see that I've got a little bit of movement here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it look like it's continuing to weave over in this area right there so that we close it off and make it interesting. Okay, so you go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of texture to the background. So I really wanted to make this look as though the cat was sitting in the moonlight. And so we're going to have some radiating lines coming out from this centerpiece here. So what this is going to look like is you're going to start by creating these really nice diagonal lines that are going to work their way around. Now it's a little tight on the top of mine this time. The first time I had a little bit more room. But like I said before, every time I come back to a piece, it's always a little bit different, so it's never going to be the same thing twice. But I try to just keep my lines about the same distance away from each other here, and you can see that I'm just turning the tile and creating these radiating lines that are moving outward from the piece to give a little bit of texture to it. You can see that I'm thinking about where my lines are actually going to be going. This one would probably be coming in towards the cat a little bit. And then once again, I'm going to come back to that first part and let my lines radiate outward, just like so. So we want it to feel like there's a glow behind the cat, so that it ends up looking a little something like that. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of inking in and then get started with color. Okay, so here we go. I've picked back up my Identi pen here, and I'm just going to come in and start to add a little bit of interest. Now you can do a little crescent moon if you don't have a white gel pen, and just use that as a little bit of a light source. You can see it's just a little half moon, and then I'm inking in my orbs here. And what this is going to do is it's going to give a little gravity to the outside of the piece, which I really like. It's a really nice nod back into the center. So I'm going to go ahead and do these three. You go ahead and do them as well. So let's start with a little color, shall we? If we were in the same room together, we'd be eating some chocolate, so make sure you've got some chocolate nearby for sustenance. So we're going to be working with some blues here, and I'm going to start with the light aqua, which is PC 992. Now for this particular piece, normally I would grab for the cobalt blue, but I'm looking for something that's a little bit more interesting. And so I happen to have the peacock blue in my hand, which is PC 1027. It's a really nice kind of tealish blue, but there's also another blue that I absolutely love, and this is the cobalt turquoise, and this is PC 105, and it kind of has this really neat kind of spooky blue to it. So either one of these would be really, really great if you have them in your set. If you don't have them in your set, don't worry about it. Grab a dark blue and have that be your contrast color. It's not a big deal. Okay, so what I'm really looking for is a light blue and a dark blue. Okay, so we're going to start with the light blue first. We always start with the light first because you know you can always go darker later. So let's zoom in on our first tangle that we did over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by going very, very lightly with my first pencil here. So I'm going to go very, very softly and create a little bit of a shadow inside of this kind of swirl that we have here. And then as we get underneath it, I'm going to start to bring it in. You can see that that pencil is working in a very, very soft circular motion. I'm barely touching the page with this pencil here. I'm really just laying down kind of a foundation color. Once I've got that color in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up that darker blue and I'm going to bring a little bit of a shadow into the side of the piece here. I'm not going heavy with this because it has a lot of pigmentation to it, so I don't need to push hard. I'll come in and give a little bit of a press right on the black line just to get the color to glow. And then I'll pick up that white or that lighter color and I'm just going to blur the edge of where that dark blue is meeting the light blue. You can see that my pencil is going in a little circular motion and I'm going very, very lightly and blurring the edge of that color. I'm going to do that all the way around with all of these tangles in here and just start to develop that color. You go ahead and do yours as well. We're going to let go of the blues just for a minute or two, but we will be back to them, so keep your blues around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a tan and an orangish color. And you can see that these are very earthy. I have in my hand yellow ochre, which is PC942. It's kind of a mustard color. And then I also have in my hand pumpkin orange, which is PC1032. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, what I'm looking for is like a mustardy yellow and a light brown, and you'll be just fine, not to worry, okay? So let's go ahead and zoom back in. And we're going to start on this particular side now. And I want you to use the same technique that you did on the other side. So I'm just going to actually turn the piece over. We're going to start by bringing in a little bit of a shadow right up into the top of where that curve is, and then get down just a little bit below it, starting really nice and light with that lighter color. Remember, we're just building a foundation. We're not trying to do any blending at this point. And then I'll come in and I'll start to bring in a little bit of a shadow in here so you can see that I'm bringing in a nice dusting of that pumpkin orange. Not pressing hard, just a light dusting. Now I'm going to go along the black line and I'm going to give it a push. And you can see that that starts to get that color to glow. I'm going to come back in, and with that yellow I'm going to make little circles very, very lightly, and I'm going to drag that pigment around. The great thing about Prismacolors is that they are really blendable. And so I love working with them in terms of doing blending and moving pigment around. And I'm using a light to medium touch here. And you can see that that brings this really, really nice softness into the piece here. Now, if you really want to have a really, really nice blend, you can come back in with your white, which is PC938, one of my favorite Prismacolors, and you can just do little circles to get a little bit more blend out of that color. You can see it takes any of the graininess of the paper and just cleans it right out. So I'm going to do that same thing throughout the entire piece just to make it a little bit interesting. You go ahead and do yours. Remember to have fun and enjoy what you're doing. So we're going to let go of the tan colors just for a minute here, and we're going to start to bring in some purples into this. This is Parma Violet PC1008. I love this purple because it has such an earthiness to it. It's a really nice purple. I'm also going to be working with my graphite pencil and a tortillon just to give this a little bit of mysteriousness. So what this is going to look like is we're going to zoom in, and I'm going to do a little bit of a dusting of that Parma purple right up at the top, and a little bit of a dusting of that Parma purple down at the bottom. And you'll notice that I'm leaving at the point a little bit of light. Do the same thing on the other side, so a little bit at the bottom. And I'm going really, really lightly with this, and a little bit of it at the bottom. Now once I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and start to bring a little bit of graphite right over the top of where the Parma purple is. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not going to use the tortillon at all. I'm actually going to use my white to blend this out. So I've got that graphite in there. I'm going to pick up my white pencil here. Now remember how I was using this before when it was orange? I'm just going to take my thumb and smear it off the top so that that white pencil doesn't have any other color on it. And I'm going to do little circles and pull that graphite around and down into the Parma purple, and you can see that I'm going to drag that pigment around a little bit, and it gives this kind of smoky amethyst look to the piece. I'm doing the same thing up in here, grabbing this and moving it upward. You can see that that's kind of clearing out any kind of background noise that we're getting from the paper. And I just love the way that that color works. So go ahead and do that very same thing that I just did. I'm going to be doing that in each one of these just to give it some interest. Let's take that purple and start to bring it into the inside of the piece here. You want to make sure that your pencil is good and sharpened up here. We're going to be working on the side of the pencil to really create some nice shading. Now we have these little rays that are working around the cat here, and in every other little stripe that we have, we're going to be placing the purple in there. Now you can see that what I'm doing is I'm doing a little bit of shading where I'm leaving that central channel nice and light. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and all I'm going to do is go around to every other one and bring in that purple and leave that central channel nice and light. So I'm going to have you go around and do all of yours as well. Now you may find that you have an odd number so that it makes it a little bit difficult to continue to do this kind of shading. And so what I'm going to show you is how I handled an odd number. When you look at my piece here, you probably don't even notice it right away. But right in here, I had that space where I didn't have the right amount of lines going all the way around. So what I did was I took one side and made it purple and the other side and made it blue. So if you find yourself with an odd number of stripes, that's the way that you can handle it, and it will work out to your benefit. Okay, so I'm going to go around and do all mine with that light purple and that central channel of white. You do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with a little bit of the blues as well. So you can see it did happen to me again, and so all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that light blue, and I'm going to just bring it into the other side, and you don't even really notice it at all. So I'll go ahead and I'll start to do that same technique with the light blue and go all the way around. Remember to leave that central channel nice and light as you go. And then when we come back, we're going to start to add a little bit deeper shadows throughout the rest of these stripes that we have, okay? Have fun. So I've got that darker blue in my hand here, and you're going to see that I'm just going to start to just hang out right on the black line here and bring a little bit of drama into these stripes in here. Now, as I go around, I'm thinking about how it's going to blend out. So I'm really trying to keep as much of that darker color on the black line here. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to blend it out, and then you're going to use the same technique for when you start to do your purples. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lighter blue and just do a blur of that color right over the top of that darker blue, and you can see that it starts to bring a little bit of drama into this. So all the way around, coming in and bringing in some of that heavier pressure with that pencil. Even though it's a lighter color, it's going to drag around that pigment and really make it start to pop. The same thing is going to happen when you come back in with that Parma purple. You're just going to press a little bit harder, just like so, to get a little bit of that vibrancy, making sure that your white pencil is clean, and then doing a little blur out with your color so that you get this really beautiful electric kind of feeling in those little stripes that you have in there, okay? So have fun and play. Can already see that this is starting to come together quite nicely here. I'm going to take some of those tan colors that we were working with before and start to bring them in around the cat here. So I'm going to start by making sure that you don't see the string anymore. So you can see that I'm just taking a little bit of my eraser and getting that string out of there. I'm going to also just take a little bit of that kind of brownish orange that I have, and I'm just going to do a soft dusting of that right in these little seed shapes, and then I'll take a little bit of the yellow and do a little bit of a blurring out of that color. Notice that I'm leaving a little bit of lightness in the center here. I'm going to go all the way around and do that in the seed shapes. To get this whole thing to glow, I'm going to come back in with a little bit of the yellow, and you can see that I'm going really, really lightly on the inside of where we have this kind of woven tangle here. And I'm just creating this kind of soft glow around the inside. I'm just going to do one side of it so that you can see what I'm up to. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that brown and bring it along the black line in here. Once I've got it all along the black line, I'm going to be picking back up that yellow and starting to blur or pull that pigment around just a little bit. So I've got that brown in there, and let's go ahead and zoom in on that. I'm going to just come in and start to pull that pigment around just by doing little circles and getting a really nice soft blur off of it. The other thing that you can do is you can pick up a little bit of your white and start to bring little circles of that white and tease out that color until it fades out. So you can see that it really does start to develop a nice soft glow on the inside. So that's the way I'm going to handle the inside of the piece. So we're going to let go of our color pencils for now. I've got in my hand my graphite pencil, and I also have a tortillon that I'm going to use. This is just a blending stump, and you can get these on Amazon or Blix or any of those really great spots for your art supplies. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to come down into where we have Boulder Builder, and I'm going to start to do some shading with that graphite, and you can see that I'm going really, really lightly and starting to develop a little bit of softness in there. I'm going to be coming in with my tortillon And you can see that I'm going to do a little bit of manipulating with that tortillon. Now you can see there was something on my tortillon as I started, and it's never a great thing, but in this particular case it actually is going to work out to my benefit because it's going to make that stone look like it is more natural. So I'm just going to come in, and remember, if you don't have a blending stump, you can always use a Q-tip and use that as a blender for yourself. So I'm going to come in and start to give that a little bit of a deepening on that one side. And then here's where I love to add a little bit of brown into it. So you're going to see me just come in and start to just bring that brown right over the edges of that gray. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white and start to blur it into the gray and really make it look like stone, which is really cool. So I'm going to do all three of these in the same exact way. You go ahead and do yours. Alright, so you can see that I've got that shaded in rather nicely on that side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to shift my shadows here, and I'm going to come up from the bottom now on this one. And I'll do the same thing with these over here, just shifting the shadow a little bit so that it's a little bit more interesting. You can see I'm just coming in and bringing in those really nice shadows, and you can see that that tortillon keeps kind of putting in a little bit of wildness into my shading. And then I'll come back in and give it a little bit of density just by giving a little bit of darkness right along the edge here. And then I'll go ahead and shade those out. And then I'll come in with a little bit of that yellow again and give it some interest. And I'm going to let some of that yellow drift upward in here. Give this a little heavier press on the side just to make it interesting. But look at how cool that tangle is with a little bit of color, and then I'll pick up a little bit of yellow and blur it all out. So have fun with this one, play. Remember, let it be a little rustic, let it be a little rough, because that's what makes it so interesting. Okay? Have fun, relax, remember to breathe, and enjoy what you're doing. Let's keep working with those yellows just for a minute here. I'm going to focus in on our cat and start to bring a little bit of yellow into where we have our flower there. And I want it to just be really soft and not distract too much away from our cat here. So you can see that I'm just going around and adding a little bit of yellow in here. And remember, get in and get out. Don't be too precious with your colors. Really just kind of layer them in as you go. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that pumpkin orange, and I'm going to let this just lightly dust around the top of our little question mark here, just to give it a little bit of a shadow. And then I'll pick up a little bit of that white and I'll blur it out. Now remember, you want to make sure that you stay within those petals, because if you let that white drift out into where the cat is, it's going to lift up that color a little bit. But you can see already that that gives that a really nice soft shadow. So go ahead and play, and then when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of graphite work. So let's add just a little bit of graphite work into this piece here, just to give it a little bit of interest. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a little bit of graphite shading into where those triangles are, and you're going to see me go back and forth with this a little bit. And then I'll take a little bit of my tortillon, my little blending stump, and you can see that I'm leaving a little bit of light in there. And I'll give this a little bit of darkness right on the edge by pressing a little bit harder. Just like so. And that's going to give that a really nice shadow in there. So I'm going to go all the way around with my triangles and do just that. Isn't that so amazing how that just brought those out in such a strong way? You know, for me, whenever I use graphite next to color, it always blows me away how beautiful it is. So we're going to do one last piece with the graphite here, and that is that we're going to go around the ICO. Now you can see that there are pieces that are going over and under. I'm just going to go wherever the lines are underlapping and overlapping, and I'm just adding a dusting of that graphite. You can see that I'm going to either side of where those lines are, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with my graphite pencil, or rather my blending stump here, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a blur out. And what that does is it develops a little bit of depth of field on that particular tangle, and it's such a beautiful tangle to do with the shading. So you can see that I'm kind of weaving back and forth with that graphite, which really does give it a lot of dimension here. You can see that there's a little spot right in here that I can add a little bit to it. And if you want to get dramatic with it, you can come back in and add a little bit of heavier pressure in those areas where it's nice and close to the line, and that will add in a little bit more drama to where you have your shading. And you can come back in and use your blending stump or your Q-tip if you're using a Q-tip, and we'll make it look really interesting. So go ahead, have some fun, and play. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of green here. I happen to have lime peel green in my hand, and this is PC1005. And all I'm going to do with the lime green is just do a little bit of a dusting up the stem of our tangle here, and you can see that I'm just getting up and around the top of ukulele here, and I'm going to leave a little sheen in the center there with a little bit of white. The other thing that you can do is you can start to just add a little dusting of that green into where we have the really fun tissue tangle in here. And you can see here that it's just bringing in a little bit of interest to that area in there. So you can see that I'm just sprinkling in a little bit of green here and there. I kind of want it to feel as though we have a watercolor kind of drifting through that area. So I'm going really, really lightly with that color and just adding little accents throughout to give it a little bit of interest. So go ahead and play with adding some of that green in there. It's such a beautiful tangle, and it really just gives it quite a pop. I really love how just adding a little bit of green does so much to that. Have fun with that. So we have made it to the end here. You can see that I've got my white gel pen in my hand here. I'm going to come into where we have the face of our little kitten here, and I'm just going to do some whiskers here. I'm going to get my pen started so that it will go, and all I'm going to do is just a couple of flicks so that he has some whiskers there. And then finally I'm going to come in and add just a few dots going around where we have our flower in here. And I'm also going to add a few dots right around the tail, just to give it a little bit of a graphic look. So as we come to a close here, I'm going to go ahead and just put my chop down here in the corner. Your chop is just your initial, and it's your way of expressing that you have completed your piece. And for me, whenever I come to the end of any kind of a Zentangle creation, I take a moment to pause and offer gratitude for the time that I took to take care of myself and do something for me. Maybe just let the outside world drift away for a while and restore. And I hope that you feel restored after taking this class as well, and maybe a little bit inspired too. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. I'd love to see your creations over on our Tangled Yogi page on Facebook. You can go to the Tangled Yogi Art community page and share your work there. We have a great community of super supportive students, and I'd love to see what you're doing. Thanks so much, and I hope you have a happy Halloween. I'll create with you soon. Bye for now.